get to as many of these YouTube type cut-ups as I can just to get some extra content out there for you as I'm watching the game. I'm trying to clip and cut plays that may describe a certain phenomenon of the Steelers offense. I use that word very loosely. And then try to break it down for you guys so I can show you kind of what I'm seeing on the tape and also show you like where some of the issues exist. I don't want you to just have to take my word for it every time on the podcast. So look at this YouTube page as kind of a complement to the Yinz Know Ball podcast. And occasionally we'll actually use this to broadcast our podcast too as we get going. That's the hope at least. But for right now, these little film breakdowns are something I'll be doing. I'll try to keep them short and sweet. I know people don't have that much time. So let's jump into it. This is about the Steelers run game and why it's a disaster and where they may be able to find some slivers of success, even if they're not going to change the concepts. Brad and I talked a lot on the Yinz Know Ball podcast about what they need to do to be able to change some of the concepts that they run, and that probably isn't going to happen in the season, but there are certainly still things that they can do to get better in the run game, and so I'm going to talk about what some of the issues are and what some of the ways they can get better are today on this show. So made my cursor bigger so you can kind of see where I'm pointing as we go here. So a bunch of plays clipped together here, so I'll play the first one here for you. Okay, never good when your center gets killed. Let's run it back. I'm going to play the full clip. But first of all, what do you see here? This jet motion, this never does anything, but the Steelers love to do it. You can see them in 12 personnel, right? 2 tight ends here, Hayward and Washington. So pretty strong run tell right away. These guys typically play on rundowns. There's not been, I don't think Washington is a target yet this season. Hayward is maybe like 3, something like that. So barely utilized in the passing game. So all of a sudden, right away, you're thinking you can probably tee off and take your chances if you're the Raiders. But also just look how many guys are in the box. Peters is following the motion down here. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys in the box for the Raiders. So not really a front you want to run against. Steelers have 7 blockers for 8 guys. So somebody's going to be unblocked in this scheme, and you're going to just expect the scheme to account for them. The problem is that it doesn't, and also the problem is there's multiple issues on this play. As you run forward, you actually see. So here you've got. He's trying to just widen this defensive end. Okay, this run's going to hit somewhere in here, ideally. And you've got Hayward kind of coming across the formation to kick out the defensive end on this side. So who is the unblocked player? Well, at this point, there's lots of them. But number one, Epps just joined the box sort of late here. He came up. I cut the play, but he came up and kind of came into the box. And nobody is here to account for him for the safety joining the box. So this double ideally would work up to this backer, this double here. And you can actually see they get good movement to this backer. This is a great job by Chooks and by James Daniels. One of the reasons why I hate when people say, oh, as soon as a run gets stopped at the line of scrimmage, people say, oh, the offensive line sucks. There's a lot of moving parts to a run scheme. Tight ends have a lot to do with the run scheme. The scheme itself, the box count, the running backs' movements and patterns. There are so many moving elements to a run scheme. You can't just say an O-line sucks, although we'll see one player on the O-line does on this play. But Daniels and Chooks just moving this defensive tackle out of the gap. He's kind of a head up there on Chooks. So moving him right out of the gap, that's Tillery. Great movement on him. They've kind of created the space. The only problem is, as Daniels works to Diablo, which is where he should be working to the backer here, nobody is on the field to account for the safety that's joined the box. So the box counts are bad. The safety comes in and makes the play, and it's a no gain on the play. Of course, an issue also is that Mason Cole is getting absolutely pulverized by John Jenkins, who is a solid player, but he's like 35 years old, and he should not be literally twisting your center into a pretzel on the field. So yes, there are multiple layers to this. Mason Cole dying on this football field on this play is definitely one of those layers. But even if it isn't Mason Cole getting owned, even if he is able to make this base block, which is a tough block for any center to make, especially an undersized one, even if that isn't the case, this guy is totally unaccounted for by the scheme, knifes in, able to make the stop. So very, very difficult. Good play by number one, but by Epps, but very difficult to run the ball successfully when you've got these kind of issues. And you could see 4 out of the 5 offensive linemen do a wonderful job here. Look at the double team over here, crushing. They work up to Spillane. He has to work around the double to be able to be involved in the play. And they can certainly come off this, and there can be some communication that happens better, but this is difficult. But they're getting this kind of movement. You should be at minimum getting 4 or 5 yards on a play like this. Problem is, the box counts are wrong. You switch out of the play. Crosby's the backside guy. You actually get a good kick on him, which basically didn't happen throughout this entire game other than this play. But the play is still blown up because the box counts are just wrong. So plays you got to be able to check out of at the line of scrimmage. Don't know that Kenny has that authority to be able to do that. But that's a big issue right now for this team. All right, let's go to the next play here. I'll let it run and then comment on it. Okay, never good when 8 guys are around the ball carrier and in the backfield. That's never a positive thing. So you've got your double teams right here, obviously chipping and then helping, working up to Diablo. And he is looking to hit this run here. One of the big issues, there's many issues on this play. Freiermuth is blocking Tillery. Tillery has already walked him down into this space. So yes, asking your tight end, who is not a very good blocker, especially in line, to base block a defensive tackle playing defensive end is a tough ask. Yeah, this is something they should see when on tape, and they say, yeah, we're okay going to 12 personnel. When we come out like this, we know the Raiders are going to go heavy. They're going to put Tillery at this end spot. They're going to basically going to go heavy up front. Instead of looking for opportunities to pass out of this, which they should be, they're running into it. So big issue there. They're asking their tight ends knowingly to accomplish things in the run game they just have not accomplished on tape. So you're already putting yourself at a disadvantage from coaching perspective. I talked about this in the last Yinz Know Ball podcast, that asking Freiermuth to be this type of blocker is doing him a disservice, so that the coaching staff needs to be aware of that and make better decisions. So that's a big problem here. Another big problem. No one is blocking this guy. So that's a problem. Let's do the box count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys in the box. 25 joining late. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blockers. So somebody's going to be unblocked. You have to account for them within the scheme, right? Okay, well, the problem is nobody blocks 39. Who should be blocking 39? Oh, that would be Allen Robinson over here, who doesn't know who he's supposed to be blocking, or is also in no position because of the alignment to actually block number 39. So he has no shot at making this play, even if he does know what's going on, which it doesn't look like he did throughout the game. But even if he does, he's not going to make this play from his alignment way out here, not even in the picture right now. It's just not going to happen unless 39 sits there and does nothing. So you have 39 unblocked, which is way too close to the play side concept here to leave a guy unblocked, which is why Robinson's supposed to account for him. They want this guy to be unblocked over here, but because Najee has to cut to avoid the guy that Robinson wasn't in position or aware of as a blocker, he has to cut to where the other unblocked player is, who they just wanted the scheme to account for. So this is a disaster on so many levels. I can't even believe this happens. In the NFL, for this stuff to happen it's really embarrassing. But to have this guy not get blocked, play side of the concept, Najee already has to reroute, and then the other player who they were trying to leave unblocked based on the personnel that they had is able to actually make the tackle himself. Let's watch the players actually interact here. This is just supposed to be a hinge block on the backside. He's just keeping Crosby out of the play, keeping him from penetration, so not a bad job by Dan Moore here. Siamalu, same thing here. They're doubling. They're making sure Diablo doesn't slash through a crease here. These guys are just keeping these guys away from the play side concept. So fine here. They get pretty good movement on the 3 technique here. Doubling him up, they knock him back, but there's nowhere to run here because Freiermuth is in the gap because he's been asked to do something he has no business being asked to do. They didn't block this guy because Robinson's alignment is all wrong for this play, and this guy's supposed to be left unblocked, and he actually makes the play because Harris has to cut back into him. So about as ugly as it can get. Okay, here we go. Next one. There are some positives in this, I promise. One of the reasons why I'm so big about running you notice on all these plays, by the way, heavier personnel. This one, actually 11 personnel, right? 11 personnel, 1 wide receiver out wide here. It's Pickens, I believe, off screen. You can't see him. And then you've got Robinson and Austin with big reduced splits, okay? So one of the reasons why I hate reducing the splits of wide receivers in a run-heavy approach is that it brings people into the box on defense that can typically tackle, especially in today's day and age. Safeties are so good at tackling in today's NFL. They're so good around the box, just generally speaking, because they play there so much in college. They get a lot of experience there. So that's usually a strength of so many different safeties, that asking wide receivers to come and join and be a part of the solution as the blocking scheme, there's literally like 2-3 guys that I can think of in my time covering the league that were that caliber of blocker, where they actually were an asset to the run scheme. So now by having these guys in here, by having so much of your personnel close to the line of scrimmage where you want to run, especially for a team that runs between the tackles primarily. That's the other thing. If they were an outside zone heavy team or team that countered and got on the perimeter and basically down blocked half the defense and then ran to the opposite side and just isolated a side every time, that would be a different story. Some of this stuff would be okay. Because they are a team that wants to run between the tackles or within the box so heavily, probably as heavily as any team in the league right now, bringing players into that space to account for in the blocking scheme makes no sense at the most basic level of logic that I can describe to you. Why would you want more variables and less space to be able to run to if you're already running into a place where 5 of your offensive linemen, now your tight end, and also 2 of your wide receivers are in? It makes no sense. So the Raiders have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys in the box, and the Steelers are in 11 personnel. You cannot have a successful run out of this construction. It is basically impossible unless defenders miss tackles or blow assignments. So you can never schematically count on players failing on the other side of the ball. You have to create ways to put them in the wrong. And the Steelers just aren't doing that here. So you're asking 2 blockers to be a part of the solution against a 9-man box running from 11 personnel into this look. It is complete madness. And so no surprise that even though the offensive line to me is not the main culprits on this play, even as Harris gets the ball here, you can see, where is space, right? If you're a back, you want to see space. Where is it? Even though everybody's doing a pretty good job here. This guy's unblocked, this guy's not blocked, this guy's not blocked, but they're not firing through at least on this play. You're creating movement up front. This is pretty difficult to do as an offensive line. And the Steelers have actually done it pretty well here. They've knocked these guys a couple yards off the ball. This is pretty decent. And there's nowhere to run because there's just so many people in the box. You can't find space, right? And Robinson's trying to come across here and get this kick out. He doesn't even know who he's supposed to block. He's so confused. Thankfully, on this play, neither Epps nor Peters fired. The rest of the game, they were kind of firing uphill all game, and so that made it harder. Otherwise, this is a loss. This is a tackle for loss as well, but there is just nowhere for Najee to find space because of the amount of bodies that the Steelers have invited in the box. This isn't even a poorly blocked play. This is simply just bad scheme. You should not be running against this look. You should not be bringing offensive personnel into the picture in this play and expecting a positive result in the run game. It's just not going to happen. And you could see eventually, probably because this guy has no idea where Najee is that James Daniels has no idea where Najee is, Jenkins is able to get off this block and make this play, and Crosby's able to get off the block as well and make the play. But again, you can't hold blocks that long as offensive linemen. Because Najee's feet stops, and he has no idea, he's looking, he runs in the back of his guy here, he finds everything that's there pretty much. But that is just running into these loaded boxes out of light or heavy personnel, when your tight ends aren't good blockers, but especially out of 11 personnel with 2 wide receivers in the picture here, asked to make blocks. It just doesn't make any sense. Nobody does this in the NFL, especially with a heavy interior-based run scheme. It's totally illogical. Oh, we got jet motion coming here. I'll let this next play run. Okay. Oh my gosh. I'm going to lose my mind. Okay. How many guys? Jet motion. Oh, it's so great. Look at what it does. Look, they just shift one gap. They know exactly how to defend it because it's been around for years now. This isn't a new thing. There are other types of motion. Okay, let's count them in the box. Peters comes into the box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys in the box. What personnel are we in? 11 personnel. What are we doing? There's 6 guys here to block. You count Allen Robinson, which you probably shouldn't if you've seen him block this season. You got 7 guys, 9 defenders in the box. How are we going to count for this? Look play side. This doesn't make any sense. You don't have enough guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And no surprise, 2 guys go through unblocked and make the tackle for loss. The concepts are so bad. The scheme is so bad that they made Marcus Peters look like a good run defender last night. That's how easy this was for him. So right here you have Robinson supposed to block 39. He doesn't even do that. Barely even gets in his way. So yeah, he deserves criticism. The blocking had been poor from him all season, but this is pretty good from Washington. I don't know that you're going to ask for more than this from a tight end. Yeah, he's moving that D end. I love it. That's great. This double team again, moving the defensive tackle out of the gap. This is what you want, right? If these guys aren't in the box, this is a great run, right? But the fact that you just have two guys you cannot account for within the blocking scheme and you're continuing to run into it kills you. It's not that these guys are getting whooped up front. Look at this movement. This is great. This is what you want right here. Spillane's sitting back here. He's about to get, Tukes is on him. I mean, again, from what you can realistically be asked to do other than Allen Robinson on this play, this is what you want. And there's just no chance for the concept because it doesn't make any sense. Nobody would run into this other than the Steelers right now. So I doubt Pickett's being empowered to do this at the line of scrimmage yet. Obviously, since it keeps happening, like that, I'm assuming it hasn't been addressed in practice and things like that. But he's just got to count and get out of this and get to an audible, or Canada has to be the one to make sure that this continues not to happen and to train him to do that. I just don't know if that's happened yet. I can't comment on this, but continuing to run of this is just completely ridiculous. Like the concept is absolutely no shot, and it is through no fault of any of the players out there, even though Robinson could have done a better job. Like there's nothing Najee or the offensive line or anybody can do about that play. Like it just is a bad idea. Okay, here's the next one. Okay, good run by Najee. What are the differences? Why did they get a successful run here? Oops, sorry, I'm letting it run too much. Okay, so here we got what? We're running out of 11, right? Okay. Oh, sorry, 12. Hayward is coming in motion here, okay? Great block here. Great block here. The only reason this run is successful, despite the fact that play side, the offensive line did a good job. Dan Moore, again, it's a hinge. You're just encouraging, or an influence. You're just kind of encouraging Crosby to come upfield, make sure he doesn't cross your face and get in there, which he eventually gets kind of in on the tackle, but that's good enough by Dan Moore. You're not going to get more better than that. This is a good job here by Cole and by Siamalu. But what's happening on this play? You're running from 12 again. You're bringing Robinson into the box. At least this time you're running to a section where you're not the defense where you're not outnumbered, and that's a reason why it's somewhat successful. This play is still going to be made by Max Crosby on the backside here if Pat Freiermuth doesn't hold him and get away with it. I mean, this is an egregious jersey grab, turn of the body. I mean, you can see the jersey pull. Like, you just don't get away with those in the NFL hardly ever. Or sorry, not Max Crosby. This is Jerry Tillery. But again, you're asking your tight end, who's not a good blocker, especially in line. You're inviting heavy personnel from the Raiders, right? We said when they go 12, the Raiders were going heavy defensive end look, Crosby on one side, and then Tillery to the close side of the formation or the strength of the defense of the offense. And when you do that, so you know, looking at tape, and you know based on this game and the way it's transpired, you are putting your tight end against Tillery. At least this time it's backside, so I'm not as aggrieved by it. But again, this has no shot unless he holds him and turns his whole body. Like, he's probably going to make this play or at least hit Najee and slow him down in the backfield. So less of an issue than the other ones. And again, you see there's good things up front. These doubles worked all night. They were moving these D tackles. Got him turned, got up to the second level, and Najee's able to make something out of it, get a little spin. This was one of the better runs, right? The best run out of 12 personnel or 13 that they had in this game. But it doesn't work unless this hold by Freiermuth happens backside. So again, what are you asking your tight ends to do, and how can you get them out of the equation as a run scheme? Well, you run more out of 11 personnel, which is kind of the next point we're going to make. The offensive line's doing their job. They're handling business up front here. The problem is the box counts are wrong, or the tight ends are losing, and it's creating issues in the run game. Or the wide receivers, in Allen Robinson's case, like we'll consider him a tight end in this alignment. Like the blocking of the peripheral players has been very poor. And Mason Cole's certainly an exception to this rule at times. But on a lot of these plays, that's definitely not the case. Like the offensive line is not necessarily the biggest issue. I'm not saying they're perfect. They're far from it. I'd be the first to admit that. But they're not the biggest issue. So let's check this out. Next play after this one, you can see, again, good run by Najee, good vision by Najee. He's been a complaint for a lot of people. I don't see it on tape. Like, he certainly lacks certain gifts, for sure. He's not explosive. He's not necessarily the fastest change of direction guy. Could that alleviate some of the run game woes because of the other struggles that exist around him? Sure. But if it's a competent approach, competent scheme, and players are behaving competently in front of him, he's going to usually get what's there. Like, the problem ends with Najee. It doesn't begin with Najee. Like, he might not be good enough to save this, but he's certainly good enough to maximize it if everything in front of him is better. Next play, I'll let run. We got a 6-yard gain on first down, okay? This is positive. This is success rate achieved in the run game. What are some of the differences that you notice? Oh, it's 11 personnel. I have one tight end. He's backside. We're running to the weak side. There are 6 guys in the box. it looks like there's space. We can actually see where we might be able to go with the ball. That's always helpful as a running back to make quick decisions. Everything is just defined a little more clearly. Again, you get movement on the double. You're able to clearly read the linebackers, and these guys are reading the linebackers and working up to them. These guys are reading the linebackers and working up to them. He's able to read the double, right? This linebacker shifts, right? The weak side backer shifts over toward the A gap. He knows I'm going right through that B gap, and boom, it's a clear defined read for him. He gets through there for 6 yards. Even if you can't, and just an awesome block by Ciamalo, by the way. He was really good the other night. But again, Moore is just hinging, keeping that guy from being a part of the solution. He slows him down a little bit. That's going to happen sometimes. You got to be strong, get through there if you're Warren. Najee makes a great play on this similar idea later. But double here, get movement. Warren's able to see it, get through the hole. It's what you want. It's exactly what you want. But again, it's 11 personnel. It's a lighter box. You've dictated the lighter box by the offensive personnel that you've put on the field, which is allowing clear, defined reads for a running back, less variables for an offensive line to account for. You're not relying on peripheral blockers like other tight ends or Allen Robinson or things like that for your run scheme to be successful. Everything is just easier when you have less variables to worry about. And these guys over here, they barely have to be part of the solution, right? So yeah, anyways, excellent work by everybody up front. Diablo's able to get off that block, which is going to happen, and he was able to make a play. Corner comes over and joins. George Pickens could have been interested in this play. That would have been cool, but I guess not. And you get 6 yards. So I think if you got this every time, again, you're not going to get every time, but 11 personnel could be the key. Oh, what do we have here? Oh, look, 6-man box, 11 personnel, 1 tight end. I wonder what happens. Maybe we found something. Keep in mind, every run that I showed you before this was 12 personnel, except for the one I showed you that was 11 personnel. But Robinson and Austin were both in tight to the formation, so you still have a numbers problem. You're not necessarily relying on tight ends as much in the blocking game, but you're relying on wide receivers now, and you have a numbers problem because you've created a box count disadvantage. So this play, 11 personnel. You've got doubles going here, working up. Again, great movement here. Daniels and Chooks absolutely cruising on these guys, right? Look at the space. He can read the linebacker. He sees Spillane, right? Spillane is inching over this way. Okay, I'm going to take him that way. Good job by Warren. I'm going to take him that way, and then I'm going to plant my foot in the ground and get through the gap he just vacated before he can get over there. And that's what he does. Use the double team. Cut right nice and tight to the double team into the space, and you've got yourself a successful play. It just doesn't have to be that hard. Also here, interesting. Still, although they dictated, again, 11 personnel, but the Raiders still went with Tillery as the defensive end here. Freiermuth, play side of the formation. This is not really good, right? But he's actually at an advantageous angle to be able to just stay in front of Tillery. He gets knocked backwards. Tillery actually gets off the block, but not in time, okay? So again, what you're asking them to do is still tough, but this is the kind of play. Freiermuth's not going to face a Tillery, like a size defensive end every week in this scheme. I'll say that, especially in 11 personnel. Like that was kind of a risk by the Raiders going like this with Tillery in this situation. If the Steelers had passed, you're at a little bit of a disadvantage there. But because this is a good job by Freiermuth just hanging on, honestly. And Tillery, yeah, maybe he could have made that play and maybe it's still an issue. But at that point, I'd say against most looks, you've actually put your tight end in a position to where alignment-wise, he's not asked to base block and move this guy off the ball in order for it to be successful. He just has to cut him off play side, and he does that well enough. So at least you've asked less of him, although the matchup is still tough. You couldn't have, again, you know that when you're going to 12 personnel. I don't think you could have known Tillery was going to play DN against 11 personnel. I'm not sure of the down here. I think it was first down, but I should have noted that probably. But I think you've done more to help him on this play than you have on others. So, and no surprise, it's a 11, 12-yard gain for Warren. You make secondary players tackle. You're in a good spot offensively. Let's look at the last one here. 17-yard run by Najee. This was the biggest run of the day, I believe. Okay, so let's rewind here quickly. What do we see? Okay, we once again are running from 11 personnel. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 men in the box. All 3 of the successful runs have been from 11 personnel against 6-man boxes. I wonder if there is a correlation there. Running weak side again, which I like. You can't only do that, obviously, but I like it. Siamalu helps a little bit here, but he has to come off, so Cole's kind of got to handle this. He has to come off because Diablo, who had been sitting all game, fires. So great eyes by Siamalu. This was probably the best block of the night. He's able to pick up Diablo, get him out of that gap. Good job by Dan Moore. Just kind of, again, he's just kind of hinging, keeping that guy from coming off his block. Cole kind of, this is pretty good by 93, like in the coaching room, but you got to get off the block and make the play, and he's not able to do that. Watch Najee's hand. See if you can see it. See him push the arm down as he tries to get tackled? That's what you have to do as a running back when you get through those gaps. But again, what is Najee seeing back here? He's seeing a gap. There's actually space to run to. And so he accelerates, and he looks like a totally different player. He's not stopping his feet beyond the line of scrimmage because he can actually see grass. Spillane, as Steelers fans know, not athletic enough to get over there and make that play from the backside, even though this is tough because I think Daniels actually kind of gets held here. You see this? So McDaniels can't see how his body gets turned. He can't get to Spillane. Luckily, Spillane can't make that play anyway. So, yeah, it's good. It's good stuff by the group up front. Mason Cole's always, this is probably as good as you're going to get from him when you're asking him to handle a nose one-on-one. But, yeah, I don't know that you could expect much more out of this. Good little shot by Siamalu to let Moore get kind of his get moved over there. Or Cole, sorry, not Moore. Let Cole get moved over there. And then, again, great job picking up the firing linebacker. Makes that play, pushes him out wide, and great offhand by Najee. That's textbook stuff. Pushes the tackle off. Nice cut here, right? Got the safety. Gets outside. If you could just give him grass to run to, the way you do it is 11 personnel. You run weak side more often. You give your tight ends matchups they can handle against most teams. You put them in more advantageous situations. You don't run into heavy box counts. You make the vision easier for the running backs. You allow the defense to put less variables in the box for you to have to account for as a blocking unit. It's not that hard. Other teams have been doing it for ages. Steelers got to get with the times. If they can lean into some of this other stuff and stop going to these heavy personnel run looks, they could have something here. Even with as weak as their concepts are, they could have something here. But it didn't happen enough on Sunday. Maybe it happened enough for the win, but didn't happen enough to have an overall dominant running game, which is something I do believe that they would really help their team moving forward this season. So thanks for tuning in on this one. We'll try to do more of these as the season goes on.